Hello, welcome to IGN's trailer analysis for the first Doctor Strange trailer. Now, there's lots of cool stuff to talk about, but I wanted to begin at the end with the kind of partial reveal of Strange in his final costume. There's lots of cool things here, but the first thing to comment upon is the window. Now, that symbol, which you can see more clearly in the poster they revealed yesterday, is the mark or the sigil of Vishanti, who are a magical trio in the Marvel Universe and an entity that Strange invokes frequently when casting spells. Now, the second thing to point out is, unless someone has left a door open, there's no reason for that cape to be moving that much. And that's because the cloak of levitation, and it is a cloak, not a cape, has a kind of degree of, not self-awareness, but sentience. It kind of functions a bit like a character, moves of its own volition. It's bequeathed to Strange by the Ancient One, and it's kind of cool they're bringing that to life rather than just a static piece of fabric. Now, let's go all the way back to the beginning. So the whole trailer kind of functions as a bit like a compressed origin story for Strange, who is a lesser-known Marvel hero. And the opening begins with the accident that sets him off to become the Sorcerer Supreme. Now, he's crashed his car, he's gone off the road, he's ditched it in a river. But if you look at what he's wearing a tuxedo, bow tie, and you see that shot later in the trailer where he's getting ready to go out and he's already drinking. So possibly drink driving is responsible for this accident.
Might I offer you some advice? Forget everything that you think you know.
So we get a few more shots here of Strange further on in his journey when he's abandoned New York and he's gone in search of answers and cures that can restore the function of his hands. And we get a nice close-up that shows the damage done to those hands. And let's just rewind it slightly. You can see the damage done and the extensive scarring by subsequent surgery that have rendered them unusable. This is Rachel McAdams, who we don't know much about her character at all, but it looks like she's either a doctor or perhaps a nurse at the hospital Strange is taken to at least, but maybe also the one he works at. And she genuinely looks concerned about him at this point. So maybe they've had a personal relationship at some point that Strange, because of his arrogance, has destroyed. So this is the shot I was talking about where he's ready to go out. He's got a very expensive apartment that overlooks Manhattan. And there's a haughtiness to his expression. I wonder if he thinks in this moment when he's drinking that even though he's achieved everything professionally, maybe he has nothing of personal value. And then there's this nice kind of jump cut to post-accident. You can see the scars on his hands if you look very closely. And he's disheveled, he's lost everything. This next sequence kind of focuses on hands. They are kind of symbols of Strange's success. He's a brilliant world-famous surgeon, symbols of his dexterity, his genius, but also they're really important for when he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. His hands are integral for casting spells. So there's some really important imagery for the Strange character. Again, another really nice jump cut. The arrogant man who has everything to the broken man who has nothing. You can see the scarring on the hands, and if you look at the right hand, there's also a tremor. We find out why he has such extensive scarring on his hands, all the operations that have tried to restore nerve function and return him to his place as a brilliant surgeon. Now, in the comics, Mordo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor here, is kind of one of Strange's arch nemesis. It's a very broad, arch, villainous character, but in this rendition, or early on, I think they're going to depict him as a friend and a mentor to Strange. Now, this doesn't look like Tibet, where Strange's training takes place. This looks more like Hong Kong, but maybe an action sequence also takes place there. This is Tibet. So they did some shooting in Nepal. That is a jewelry shop in the background, but this is doubling up as Tibet, which is the home place of Strange's teacher and mentor, the Ancient One, who we see here. So I'm just going to pause this shot right now before we go on to the Ancient One. This is Strange wearing his kind of traveling clothing when he's all disheveled, and that's Mordo, which is kind of why I'm thinking he's the one that recruits Strange and brings him to meet the Ancient One and begin his training. But what I really want to focus on is the floor, and particularly that kind of inscription. Now, I think that's an ancient depiction of the Tesseract. You can see the cube and you can kind of see the stone or gem within it. Now, my theory is the Ancient One knows all about the Infinity Stones. Now, in the Marvel Universe, we know where 4 of the 6 Infinity Stones are in the cinematic universe. We don't know where the remaining 2 are. And if you've seen pictures of the Eye of Agamotto, even though it's not in the trailer, it does look like it's holding a green stone, which is very interesting.
Possibility.
Here's Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. Now, in the Marvel comics, the Ancient One is typically depicted as a man and is supernaturally old, over 500 years old, in fact. Now, we don't know whether Tilda Swinton is actually, thousands of years old, or whether the Ancient One is a ceremonial title, perhaps, bequeathed to the lead teacher in the school. And here's Strange's first lesson. She punches him in the chest and she separates out his spiritual form from his body. And this is one of Strange's key powers. And in the background, you can actually see Baron Mordo skulking in the shadows. Perhaps a little bit of foreshadowing there. So while Strange is in his spiritual form, his body remains on Earth and is kind of in a coma, so is incredibly vulnerable to attack. Typically, he has someone watching over him, and usually in the comics, that's Wong, his manservant and friend, who you actually hear at the beginning of the trailer, played by Benedict Wong. This is Mads Mikkelsen. We know very little about who Mads Mikkelsen is playing. We don't know his character name, but we know he is the villain of the piece. Kevin Feige, who is the head honcho at Marvel Studios, said he is a sorcerer who breaks off into his own sect. He believes the Ancient One is just protecting her own power base and that the world may be better off if we were to allow some of these other things through. Now, my theory is in this scene, he's allowing some of those other things through into our plane of existence. He's in this, what looks like a church or a cathedral, and I think he's summoning someone from another dimension. And the reason I think that is this shot right about here. You can see his eyes. Now, admittedly, it's not face on, so you don't get a really good view, but in that shot, it doesn't look like they have the kind of burnt effect you see later in the trailer, which I think is a consequence of him summoning something evil. So this is Strange, I think, embarking on one of his very first lessons with the Ancient One. He's still got a full beard and he still looks a bit of a mess, and he's wearing very basic robes, like this is his first day at school. Yeah, so here's Mikkelsen's character with his 4 acolytes, and on the 3 faces that you can see, each one has that kind of burnt eye effect, which I don't think is visible in that previous shot because I don't think it's happened to them yet. And they also all have a kind of glyph on their forehead. I just think there's something from another dimension which has kind of marked them or branded them. So lots of candidates for this. It could be Nightmare, Mephisto, or even one of Strange's biggest threats, the evil Dormammu. So this is a good close-up of Baron Mordo. I do think he's going to function as kind of a friend and a mentor in this movie, but there's just something about this expression. I think it's just seeding that, I don't know, maybe there's going to be tension between Strange and Mordo in this movie, potentially setting up Mordo as a villain for a potential sequel to Doctor Strange.
So much you don't know.
So this is kind of the big spectacular shot at the end of the movie where Strange plummets through this landscape where New York kaleidoscopically folds in on itself. But if you look very closely, I actually don't think this shot follows on directly from that preceding one. I think he probably actually goes on a different journey when the Ancient One touches his forehead. The reason I say that is because you look very closely at the figure falling through the skyline. It looks like they have his cape on, which doesn't quite match up with what Strange is wearing when he's back in the temple. So that's our analysis of the first trailer of Doctor Strange. We're really excited about it. We're going to be talking about it more on the site until it comes out, so stay right with us on IGN.